Tonight on Gail Scott-Key's Entertainment Now show, I am thrilled to welcome Emmy Award-winning creator, writer, and director Rob Livie. From crafting powerful visual stories for global brands like Apple, Microsoft, and Dell, to his new sci-fi streaming series, Resonance, Rob has built a reputation for pushing the boundaries of storytelling and imagination. Get ready as we dive into his creative journey, the heart behind his work, and what's next from this visionary voice in entertainment? Coming up right now on Gail Scott Key's Entertainment Now with Jeff Standen. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you here to talk about your new production.
Well, thank you. It's so great to be here, Gail. And that was quite an introduction. I hope you have the right person on the show.
Absolutely. I have VIP, and we are going to dive right into it because I can't wait. Wait till you all see this. We've got the clip of Resonance. It's Rob's new project. And I'm going to tell you all right now, Star Power, this is it. This is it. Grab the popcorn, stop what else you're doing, and watch this segment. It's going to be well worth it. Rob, as I said, what what first got you excited about Resonance? Because I know what got me excited.
Uh, well, I have to tell you, this is a story I've wanted to tell ever since I was a kid. The story has evolved over time, but the DNA of it is still there. When I was a little kid, I basically used to draw comic books. I used to use my dad's 8mm movie camera and do stop motion animation. And I was inspired by movies like Star Wars and things like that. And ultimately, that brought me into the field that I was in. So I started out as a motion graphics designer and went from there. But I tell you that story started at a young age, but it's something that I've been working on, throughout the decades. And it really wasn't until the last few years that it really all came together and started to really click for me.
Wow, talk about taking it from a childhood dream and now into reality. So, the moment to jump this into a scripted TV with it, how did that all evolve?
Yeah, so I actually had a great conversation with a friend of mine, Tim Messina. He actually owns Events United and Studio Lab in Derry, New Hampshire. And I basically gave him sort of the high level pitch for the show, and he said to me, this is an incredible idea. You need to pursue it. Originally, I was pitching it as a movie, and he says, what you're telling me about is so expansive. It really needs to be told in a series. There's just so much there, so many things to explore. So I took his advice and actually shifted gears. And we're in a day now where television and streaming is really very competitive with with feature films. The production level on certain shows is right up there. So I really do feel like that it's the right medium for this. And what I love about streaming is that you actually get time to really dig into the characters and into the storylines and areas that you may not have explored otherwise, in trying to fit it within 2 hours.
Absolutely. And talking about the characters, Rob, well, let's talk about Kara and Josh. How did they first pop into your head to create this storyline?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Josh's character himself is one that I've been thinking about, probably for the most part. I like this idea of someone who sort of grew up, in the quote normal world, but then realized that they actually, might be special. There was something unique about them. Whether they have special powers or special abilities, that sort of a thing. That was something that really appealed to me. And what I started to do with Josh's character, is as you started to sort of peel back the layers, you realize that there's an entire backstory with his family, with sort of the state of affairs of the world that have ultimately affected him, and he's just becoming aware of this now, in this show as a late teenager. So it's really fun to explore that. Kara was a little bit more of a recent addition to this show. She was, I guess I'd say she was there all along, but I hadn't quite figured out who she was yet. I knew that basically I wanted to have Josh have this experience with someone from another world, and essentially this person crashes in his backyard, and so it took me some time to figure out the backstory, what that world was. For Kara, once I figured that out, I fully understood her personality, and it became such a um, just such a motivating factor for me. I realized that there's so much to tell about the world that she comes from, her own motivations, her own family, things like that. So it's going to be just really fun talking about it.
It is incredible because there's a line in here that you use that actually I use in my marriage, believe it or not. Well, you are not my enemy. How does that play out between them? I mean, it plays out well between us, but I just wanted to hear from your mind.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. So you are not my enemy. It's actually not a line necessarily between these two characters. It's actually a message from these two characters, and so they come from very different worlds, and they actually kind of have to tell everyone else from their worlds that things are okay. And we're defensive people. I think about the fact that when we're kids, we're taught not to trust strangers, and that makes sense. But as we get older, we tend to remember that. And the reality is, if someone has a different idea from us, if they maybe come from a different part of the world or they look different from us, we sometimes hold them, with suspicion and sometimes worse with fear. And the reality is, you sit down and you have a meal together. You find out that there's so many more things that actually you have in common. So many more things bring us together than what actually divide us. And I really do feel like that's something that it's important for us to remember. It's something that's honestly easy to forget, especially when there are loud voices in the world telling us otherwise. I think it's really important to remember that we are so much better when we're in alignment with each other.
I love that. I love how you address that. And of course, anybody who knows you, coming from a tech background and other ways that you have expressed yourself and just come to the plate. So here's a question. With resonance, how did you mix tech, spirit, and real human bonds? How did they blend so perfectly
Mm.
in this vision of what you have for this production?
I love that you have the word spirit in there. It's really the thing that comes between everything. I feel like at the heart of storytelling, at the heart of communication, is truly this sense of spirit, who we are as humans, who we are as people, and what we have in common, that shared bond that we have. So the idea that spirit is in the middle of that, I think, means a lot. For me, as far as technology is concerned, I mean, I think we're definitely in the right time and the right age for this sort of a thing. The tools that we have available to us for telling stories have they've just increased in sophistication. Uh, I will say that sometimes that can get away from us. So it's really been my job to try to keep the humanity and the relational part of this as a key part of this. So, for example, we were on a shoot recently for this teaser that we worked on. We had about 40 people on set, and it's really easy to get wrapped up in the lighting, in the video wall technology, all these types of things. But the reality is, when you're actually talking to other crew members and having these conversations, you're asking about things that you know that are actually probably much more meaningful than what you're working on. You're asking about the other people's families and what they're up to, and that sort of a thing. Those are the things that actually truly connect us. I actually joke that sometimes this is actually an excuse for us just to hang out and actually have a lot of fun working on a project together.
Right. I love that. And I'm sure that they feel the same way. So they don't mind. I'm sure they don't mind.
I'm
And
sure
and
they
I
don't
have
mind.
to ask you, when you were mentioning about leggings, now I'm an 80s girl. I'm an 80s fan. Anybody who knows me knows this is the truth. So I'm seeing some correlation of the 80s sci-fi flicks in here. Are you giving a nod in resonance to the 80s, throw out just want to make sure.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, the show itself takes place in 1983, so it really has to lean into that. The fun thing is here is that I don't want to shout that it's 1983. I just want it to be 1983, because when you lived it, it's very different than how we remember it. But I do take a lot of my cues from Star Wars. Was obviously made a big impression on me, as did with a lot of people at the time. There are a few other things that I think of. There was a TV series called V, a miniseries that I really
Yes,
liked as a
yes.
kid.
Yep.
I love Back to the Future, but I also really love the superhero genre. So, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, all those types of characters really appealed to me as a kid. And, one funny memory I had when I was a kid is I realized I wanted to draw and make a superhero. But I also wanted to be that superhero. So I ended up trying to draw a costume using only the clothes that I had. So apparently my superhero had plaid pants.
I love it. I love it. Well, when you do make that into creation, I'll make sure that I get my husband a pair because, I'm seeing that in the future. I'm seeing
But
that. I love it. I
I'm
love it.
sure.
Rob, I'm so honored to have this interview with you for so many reasons. I love your mind. I love the way that you just take us from journey to journey, and you just have this fine underlying story that connects us all. So tell me, how is working on Resonance? How has that changed you as a storyteller, as a person?
It's really changed me in profound ways. I guess I would start by saying I used to have social anxiety, and I used to be pretty introverted. And I realized over time, and in the job that I had prior to this, so I was a motion graphics designer, as I mentioned, a lot of that is spending just time in front of a computer by yourself, And the reality is, when you're actually directing a production like this, you really have to involve other people. You can't be in front of the camera and behind the camera and doing everything at the same time. And so I really had to learn how to actually communicate, how to cast a vision. And so that's been a key part of this. But what I've found is that having conversations about this show are just as exciting to me as actually working on the show, because I'm finding that the show is informing my life is informing the show. The more these characters develop, the more I develop. It's strange in strange ways, and the more I learn and grow, and the more I'm incorporating that into the show. These conversations have just been very unexpected, but really probably the best part of this for me is being able to talk about, big picture things, sometimes talking about deeper things, but, just being authentic with people. And, I think that's something that's really, really been helpful and really unexpected and really enjoyable.
Well, it sounds like this project gives us an introduction into Rob Livie in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I think that's true. And every once in a while, I'll catch myself and I'll realize, oh wait, that's probably some part of me. Like there's when I describe Kara, for example, I say that her purpose is to find her purpose, And I was like, oh, that's kind of how I felt about myself for a long time. And and I see that throughout a bunch of different characters. And I think you just sort of write what you know, and that is sort of what comes out from it.
I love it. I love it. Now tell me, what's the expectation of your core audience? Who are you looking to attract with this? And who do you think might be surprised if they're hooked to it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, when it comes to the audience, to be honest, I really did start with just what interests me. But and that was a big start of it, but I really did try to help make it more appealing to other people as well. So I've definitely asked a lot of questions along the way, and tried to make sure I'm not, too far out in the wrong direction. But that said, I do feel like this has potential to be, sort of a four quadrant series. So what I mean by that is basically appealing to men over 25, men under 25, women over 25, and women under 25. I actually joke that this is maybe a five quadrant show, which I know is mathematically impossible, but the idea is that there are so many well-rounded characters in here is what I'm hoping to have. You think about the movie The Breakfast Club, for example, and you have these different characters that sort of represent different walks of life, and this show will have that sort of quality to it as well. So I feel like there's going to be characters that a lot of people can identify with. So if you like one character, you may dislike another character, and part of that's by design. So I think it could appeal to a lot of people that way.
I have such a good feeling. I tell you this all the time. I talk with stars just like you who are just so humble. And as soon as I just say this is going to be big, I'm telling you who are watching, this is going to be big. If you land a full season, what is that going to look like for you?
Oh, I mean, that would be incredible. And to be honest, the full season, I really feel like I need that full season in order to truly sort of develop these characters in the way that they're meant to be developed. There are a lot of story threads that I'm just going to be hinting at. The thing about a pilot episode is it's just about promise. There's the promise of what this show can be. And there are just so many themes, so many threads that I want to explore. But one of the interesting things I would say is, because this is sci-fi, there's this idea like, what if aliens did come to Earth, and what if they look like you and I? And, what if, how would people respond to that? It's a simple question, but if you think about it, everyone probably would respond a different way. And I kind of think of it like this, maybe for our argument's sake, maybe there's five different types of responses you might have. There might be one group of people that looks at it and says, what can we gain from this? What wisdom can we gain? What, how can we innovate? What technology is there? There might be another group of people that might get defensive and say, these people might be a threat. There's another group that might be, well, what does this say about the deeper meaning of life? And it sort of goes on and on like that. And so I really want to use that first season to start to explore sort of humanity as a whole, but also as a fracture, how different people respond and what motivates those types of responses. Because even though we all are very similar, we do respond to these things in very different ways. And I love to be able to explore the psychology behind that and maybe give the audience a little bit of insight into that as well.
I love that because it sounds like you're sharing the personal values or beliefs that have influenced your stories that you choose to tell. And with being a storyteller, it is a gift. Not everybody can do it. So, when you're doing these projects, can you share behind the scene moments from your career of doing this that you'll never forget? What really captured you as also the director, the producer, and also being on set with your wonderful actors?
Yeah, it's interesting. My whole career has had lots of really fun moments and things like that. And honestly, really the things that come to mind are the moments when I'm working with other people and we're struggling to try to figure something out, and all of a sudden we get it, and like the room just lights up. Those to me are some of my favorite moments. To be honest, this experience of producing this project, I mean, we had a 4-day shoot, and it was just such a memorable experience. And when we wrapped, there was just this enthusiasm on the set. There was a sense of it's almost like we were leaving summer camp. Everyone had to say
Hmm.
goodbye, but we didn't want to. And to me, that's been one of the I guess I would say one of the surprises of this. I mean, I knew that could be there, that camaraderie could be there, but to do that in such a quick period of time, I thought was really, really something. So my answer would have been different if you'd asked me this a few years ago, but now, to be honest, it's the personal relationships, the friendships that you develop. You get to meet people from so many different walks of life, and it just informs you. It makes you a better person.
Sure does. It absolutely does. I know I was when I walked away from you the first time meeting you. I was like, oh my goodness. So, for those who are working with you, they get the honor of meeting you. They get to see you, how you work. But for someone just meeting you, who is Rob Livie as a creator and storyteller?
Wow, that's a big question. I guess what I would say is I I've always had big ideas, tons of ideas, been very creative as a kid. I just didn't realize that that's what that was. I just thought that was normal. And the reality is, I think a lot of fear in life took over, and like I mentioned earlier, anxiety, things like that, and they tended to sort of strangle that creativity. And it really hasn't been until recently that I've helped sort of figure myself out a little bit, and I've really just started to work on those issues. So I go to therapy. I'm one of those people that actually does talk about your problems, and it turns out that it's not just to hear yourself talk. Like, it actually is to get better. And I've found that the healthier I've been getting, the more creative I've been getting. It seems like you just don't have that baggage anymore. And so I guess your question was, who am I? And I guess the reality is, who am I becoming? Because that's what this process has been for me. Is it's showing me that there's so much more potential if you can just sort of work on the things that are weighing you down, that are challenging you. But then also it has to do with, I think generally speaking, it's trying not to harbor anger and grudges towards other people. And I feel like the more you release that, the more it opens up things as well. So that's just a big core. I wouldn't even call it a principle. It's just the way I live now, and it's just informed so much, and it's been so helpful. It really has.
I love that. I tip my hat off to you, honestly, because I was just talking to another PR agent who works with a lot of stars, and she had shared with me struggles with, but she's very uh, transparent about these, and people love relatability. So,
Mhm.
with that said, you've worn many hats: writer, director, producer. Rob, Which role feels most like home and why?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, each of those roles have been seasons, and I think that each of them has fit well at the right time in my life. But to be honest, I'm really leaning into this role of director, and it doesn't necessarily mean just the director on set. It's sort of the person that casts the vision and sort of inspires people, and that's the thing that I'm really leaning into. And to be honest, it's been a big surprise. Like, I didn't realize that was part of who I am, and it's something that has actually been sort of one of the key ingredients to the success of this project. When I talk about this project with other people, there's an excitement that people pick up on. There's an energy there, and to be honest, that's just been an incredible thrill for me. It really has.
I'm so proud of you. And I just know that this is, I keep saying it, I can't help it. It's going to be a hit. It's going to be a major success. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share with me because let's talk about where people can start looking at resonance and how they can start getting involved in and all of the aspects of it because this is really an incredible production. And I want to make sure we give you all the props and send everybody where they need to go.
Sure. Well, thank you. So this is an effort that we are still building. It's really it's taking some time to get a lot of our things in place, but I will tell you that we do have a website. It's humanoriginals.com. We will be continually posting updates there. I also have a YouTube channel where I'm going to be releasing different teasers and things like that. It's called Resonance is Real. And then also, if you have questions you want to ask me, it's not a huge company right now, so I have the time to occasionally talk to people, personally. And sometimes there's questions that come up that actually help inspire me and move me forward as well. So feel free to reach out at, in this case, I would say info@humanoriginals.com. And you can reach out to me that way. And we are going to be expanding sort of our platforms and our reach as we get closer to the launch of this full teaser. So hopefully that helps.
What an incredible conversation with Emmy Award winning creator, writer, and director Rob Livie, the visionary behind Resonance. Rob, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your heart and inspiration behind your work. It truly, the storytelling and the creative insights, it really reminds us as why art and purpose go hand in hand. So I truly thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Gail. It's been great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it is wonderful. And to you, our viewers, thank you for tuning into Gail Scott-Key's Entertainment Now show with Jeff Sandin. He's away right now, as I'm sure you can see. But be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future conversations like this that celebrate creativity, purpose, and people making an impact in entertainment. For now, I'm Gail Scott-Key on Gail Scott-Key's Entertainment Now on YouTube.